Dr. Greg Mendel, your friendly anatomy professor. We're going to go over the types of white blood cells and the one red blood cell. So let's take a look. So when I look at these, I group these into two different categories. These are your granulocytes, and these are your agranulocytes, and then we have our lonely red blood cell. The reason I kind of put them in this order is I remember granulocytes like grains of rice. Uncle Ben's grains of rice. Uncle Ben, B-E-N. Baso, Eosino, Neutro. So those three are considered granulocytes, even though the model maker didn't really put grains on here. And these are your agranulocytes, even though they're kind of granulated. So when we look at these, we'll start with the basophil. Basophil has less than 1%. And under a microscope, what we see is that it's so heavily granulated, you don't even really see the nucleus. So these things kind of release histamine, they cause inflammatory responses. You'll see them in allergic reaction, that sort of thing. So this is our basophil. This is less than 1%. Again, so heavily granulated under a microscope, you can't really see it. Next one. Eosinophils. Eosinophils, I had this weird thing, as I remember in my head, is it's a big red planet full of worms. And so if you look at it, we have purple, pink, purple, purple, but this one red, very red. And I say this planet is cold because it has earmuffs. So we see at the nucleus, kind of looks like a pair of earmuffs. Again, red, earmuffs. The reason I say planet full of worms is because it fights parasitic worm infestations. And the worm infestations is because, well, obviously if you've got, so sorry, it's less than around 3% average, somewhere between 3-4%, but they might have a parasitic worm infestation. So eosinophils, worm infestation, a bilobed nucleus that kind of looks like a set of earmuffs, very red background. Next, we have the neutrophils. Neutrophils are multiply lobed. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes they have 5, sometimes they might have 6, sometimes they might only have 3, but there's more than 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. It's more than 2. This is our most numerous. It is around 60% neutrophils. We know that this is the first on the scene to fight. We also know they love to fight bacteria. So they're known as bacteria slayers. First on the scene to fight, around 60%, multiple lobed, the last of our granulocytes. Then we have our two agranulocytes. And if you look at size, we've got these are about the same size. The monocyte is bigger. It's the biggest. I like to think the few, the proud, the monocyte, they will go anywhere and fight anything. If you look at a monocyte, it has a horseshoe-shaped nucleus, and I'm going to use the term abundant cytoplasm. And if you look at all this cytoplasm, you can see lots of cytoplasm. On these, you don't really see this big horseshoe shape. Now, sometimes under a microscope, the horseshoe shape might be sideways, and you see a big glob. But these are quite a bit larger than the rest of the white blood cells. The other thing about this is they will leave the bloodstream. And so we have diapetesis and chemotaxis, where they're actually following the chemical trail. These are known to leave the bloodstream and attack other things. They will fight viruses, they will fight bacteria, they will fight cancer cells, they will pretty much attack anything. It doesn't care what it is. And they do this thing called phagocytosis. They're active phagocytosis. They will engulf cells by endocytosis and eat them and just kill them, basically. So monocytes will kill about anything. They are our friends in the immune system. They're very large, and they will go anywhere and fight anything. They will leave the bloodstream. The last, but definitely not the least, but it is the smallest, is the lymphocyte. Lymphocytes are around 30%. I forgot to mention monocytes are about 8%. 8%. So we got about 30% lymphocytes. These like to fight viruses. There's two different main types. There's the B lymphocyte, which produces plasma cells that make antibodies, and they also make memory cells. There's a T lymphocyte, which directly attack, and so you've probably heard like the natural killer cells is the one I'm thinking of here. So these are lymphocytes. They B lymphocytes mature in the bone marrow, T lymphocytes in the thymus, and around 30% of these. So last but not least is the erythrocyte. The erythrocyte is biconcave. If it were a ball, it would be hard for oxygen to get to the center. You'll notice there is no nucleus. The fact that there's no nucleus carries more oxygen. They're filled with hemoglobin. Hemoglobins are a combination of 4 globulins, 2 thick, 2 thin, or 2 large, 2 small, however you want to say that. Each globulin has an iron. Each iron can carry 1 oxygen. So each hemoglobin, which these are filled with millions of, but each hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen. The one thing that isn't up here is a platelet. And platelets are cell fragments from a thing called a megakaryocyte. That is it for the white and red blood cells.